Hello, this is James Milford, head of school at Maclay School, and this is a special release guidance webinar. So one of the things that we work very hard on here is to be responsive to the things that we're hearing in the community and things that we're hearing here on campus. And we already had really this webinar in the works for the holiday season, for winter break. That's a time when anxiety is high. We knew that COVID and those restrictions were going to complicate that a little bit more. But one of the things that we've been hearing a lot more of is that is really starting now. Thanksgiving's looking very different than what's normal. I mean, you can look around the nation, see that the COVID numbers are increasing. So that adds to some anxiety, not just for kids, but for families and sense of loss and sense of grief and all those things. So we went ahead and brought, I'll just say, I know that Mr. Van refers to Dr. Farrington as the superstar that we always go to, extremely active in Tallahassee. You can Google her, all of those things. So we'll not spend 10 minutes talking about everything that she's going on, but we'll put that in the show notes. But thank you, Dr. Farrington, for joining us and being able to be a resource or continue being a resource for us, for our students and families. But maybe the best way to start as we talk about sort of anxiety loss is I'll ask Jayme, maybe, can you give us a sense of what you're seeing here, the conversations you're having, and maybe be able to frame some of the conversation today?
Yes, absolutely. I was just sharing with the guidance team today during our weekly team meeting how in my conversations and greetings with our teachers, and also I had a virtual lunch date with some of our middle school students today, and just in natural conversation, hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And a lot of people are being very conscientious of COVID and continuing to practice wonderful, safe practices. But with that came a whole lot of not really anything, nothing really. I think everybody's really welcoming a week off to rest and rejuvenate and recharge. But there was a lot of concern and disappointment not to be able to see family. This is the time in Thanksgiving where we have extended family. And I know myself, there have been 3 babies born in our family that we haven't been able to see yet. And so when I was talking with students, they were missing out on their time with cousins. So grief and loss in the holiday season has taken on a more expansive form this year. And so we want to really, as we talked as a guidance team, we really just wanted to reach out and talk with you about it as we're responding to the new needs that are upon us. And listening to our students and our teachers and faculty. This was something that came up today, or is not just today, but over the course of conversation. So, yeah.
And I would like, can I add to that, you know, even here at Maclay, we've had several staff members that have experienced loss in their family, some staff members that are undergoing some health hardships. So, you know, COVID and the things that are going on in people's lives right now that are not COVID related, but are still particularly hard to deal with at holidays, I think is another reason. You know, it just really jumped out at us that we'd love for you to speak with our parents, families, students, staff, you know, about stress and things.
Yeah.
Jayme, I think you framed it really well as grief and loss. So when we're talking about grief from sort of that therapy, psychological perspective, a lot of times people think grief just relates to death or loss of a loved one. It actually is applicable to, of course, death or loss of a loved one, but also change in a way of life, loss of a relationship, whether that's through, you know, a breakup, somebody moved far away, loss of a way of living or a role in your life. And a lot of people this Thanksgiving are going to have a big change in the way that they're living their lives this next holiday week. It's going to look very different at home. And it's completely accurate to frame that as a grief, so to speak. We are mourning the loss of our traditions this holiday season, and it's okay to acknowledge that, and that's absolutely what it is.
So one of the
When we're-
things,
Go ahead.
yeah. So one of the things that what we try to do is acknowledge that we've got our students, and again, people have heard me so many times. I love working at Maclay because you've got 3-year-olds all the way to 18-year-olds, right? So, and what an opportunity. But also we embrace our families, and we really care about them and our faculty. So, and I'll just say, you know, I'm the amateur in here. I mean, you know, all of y'all know this stuff, but could you maybe walk through, you know, early adolescence, or maybe it's kind of a lower school age, and then sort of teenager age, and then us as adults? What are some strategies that you really work on, or what advice would you give? It's probably the same for the Thanksgiving as it is the winter break, but I know this is work that you've been doing probably since March in terms of isolation and separation, and that changes a lot.
Loss of social connectedness.
Love to hear some
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah, so for our younger ones, we're sort of dealing with this, you know, loss of the former holiday that we used to celebrate. We still have a holiday, but we're definitely not celebrating it in the same way. I think it's one of the things that's a little bit easier for our younger kids as compared to our older kids is they haven't had so many years to be settled into this tradition, and this is the way of life. These are our traditions. They're still sort of learning what those traditions are and how they differ from daily life. So it's, you know, a great opportunity to maybe try out some new traditions you thought about doing. Maybe toss out the ones that you never really liked in the first place. And the other thing that's kind of nice with our younger kids is the younger they are, the more attached they are to those primary caregivers. So they are just as happy as they are anywhere, as long as mom and dad are there, as long as their siblings that they play with every day are there. So, you know, those are the important people in their life, and they're there. As you get a little bit older, those peer relationships strengthen a little bit more. Peers become sort of the focus of your world. You know, remember who those extended family members are. You know how a cousin is different than a friend, how an aunt and uncle are different from other adults in the community. And so you start to recognize a little bit more what it is that you're missing out on Thanksgiving. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's also okay to try and, you know, there are a few strategies for sort of coping with that loss or that grief that are generally what we recommend for those sorts of situations where you're missing others. You know, Zoom, we have telecommunication, we can keep in touch. So maybe setting an appointment to just reach out to family members and to acknowledge and express gratitude for things in your life with them, or engage in some sort of ritual or tradition that's maybe a little different looking than it used to be, but still sort of reflects what, you know, the point of the whole season is, that gratitude and that being thankful. So reaching out to those extended family members via Zoom, or maybe having, you know, the kids put together a little video of all the things they're thankful for and sharing that with family members, or watching the video of the cousins doing that as well, just to sort of retain that connectedness as much as you can during this season, since you can't physically be present together. And then the other thing that you really can do, especially as they get older, is because they really are missing out on those relationships. Though they know that these are not our traditions, that this is only this year. Next year, we might go back to the old traditions. So maybe take this opportunity to try something new for a tradition, or as involved as they can be in whatever it is that's going on Thanksgiving Day. The more it's going to just focus them on, this is the holiday, we are still celebrating it. It's still important to be thankful. We do still have things to be thankful for. And the more involved they are, the more distracted they are from missing family members or missing old traditions. So for those older kids, if you can involve them in mood prep, make that a big family thing. The whole family's in the kitchen. We don't have dad in the living room watching football. He's in here with mom, and all the kids are making the mashed potatoes together. Things like that. Or for our older kids, if you're not really sure you trust them in the kitchen, maybe let them help with that menu planning. You know, what are the dishes that you really like? You know, we don't have to cater to what great Aunt Sue wants this year. We don't need to make her favorite Brussels sprout dish. So what would you like as the vegetables? What's something that you would like for me to try to make for dinner tonight? And then I think the other thing that's important is just sort of remembering the meaning of the season. So remembering it's important to be with people, and we miss that we can't be with people, but it's also a period of time where we're grateful for what we do have. And so, you know, the whole count your blessings thing, it is what the season's about. It's also a strategy that we often use to distract from, you know, negative thoughts or feelings of distress, is instead of focusing on these negative things, these things we don't have, these worries that we have, let's focus on the good things that we do have. With that understanding that, you know, this too shall pass. Just because that's the way it is right now, it doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever. It could look very different next year. Next year, we could be much happier. But for right now, this is what we've got, and we'll do what we can with it, and think about and focus on what it is that we have to be grateful for.
And that's been one of the themes that I've heard, and Jeff, I'd love to hear your, because I've heard you talk about this before, is really feeling a sense of ownership about your own experience. I mean, I could see, and I have 3 sons, and I could absolutely see them just wanting to sort of sink down into the couch and not do anything for a week and mope if we weren't proactive in thinking about what can we do and how can we fill that time and how can we be intentional and just not feel like it's happening to us, but have a plan. But Jeff, I've heard you talk about that before, so I'll ask you.
Absolutely. I think, you know, and this is a little bit of a switch on that, is sort of taking ownership. And, you know, in your house, you know, we kind of move from kind of a chore kind of thing, or like, you know, hey, look, we'd really like you to take charge of this, to really having fun with cooking. And what do you want? You know, what would you like to make? I like what Amber said about, you know, well, we're not gonna be too worried that, you know, maybe grandpa wants these deviled eggs or whatever it is that he wants, but like, what do you want to make? And the funny thing is, I mentioned this on one of our previous webinars, is that our high schoolers mentioned, whether they would admit this or not, but they mentioned that really cooking was one of their mindfulness techniques. That was a way for them to kind of take away from anything that was bothering them, just to be in the present. So I love that, you know, that we can kind of use the whole family and incorporate everybody, connect everybody. And then for us, what I got while you were talking, Dr. Farrington, was, you know, hey, we're going to FaceTime my dad, and we are going to try to do some of the things that we would do with him. You know, it may not be the exact, you know, it's obviously it's going to be different because we're not there. But, you know, we're going to connect with him that way. And that way my boys can connect with him. And I just think that's something that's going to be exciting for us. And like you said, like, this is where we are now. So this is kind of how we can adjust. And it's not about what you can't do, but what can you do? And I like that. I'm taking that away from what Dr. Farrington said as well. Like, what can we do? And what can we be thankful for? And we have so many things to be thankful for, you know, just this team, our students, of course, our families. I'm not taking away from that, but we do have so many things to be thankful for. And as we move forward into the new year, just looking ahead. But yes, that's kind of what I would say about that.
Dr. Farrington, you know, for the families, you know, that have lost a family member, you know, this semester, that, you know, recently, what are some strategies or suggestions for those families, those students that have lost a grandparent, or a faculty member that has lost a spouse, or, you know, families dealing with a family member being in the hospital, not being able to be there with them because of COVID? You know, what are some strategies, ideas for, you know, those dealing with that type of thing?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And certainly not something you can just ignore or push away, or let's forget about that in the back of our minds and focus on the fact that we're celebrating Thanksgiving. I think it's important to not try to push it away. The more we try to push away that feeling of grief, that this Thanksgiving's different, so-and-so is not here and they will not be here, the more you try to push that away, the harder it becomes to heal from that. You really do have to acknowledge it. You have to know that, yes, it's different, and maybe we don't feel okay, and maybe we do feel sad, and it's not comfortable, but it's certainly okay to be sad right now. Nobody expects us to be normal. Nobody expects us to be happy just because it's a holiday. If we've got somebody we're worried about, a loved one in the hospital or a loved one that has passed, it's okay to be sad. And it does make the holidays harder, because there are so many moments where you used to have traditions, or you used to have that interaction with that person that you're not going to have. And that is pain that will be felt, unfortunately. But it's important not to push away. It is important to acknowledge it. And especially, you know, as parents, let our kids know that it's okay to feel upset about this still. You don't have to put on a happy face when you're feeling sad. You can go ahead and experience that. In fact, let me help you cope with that. Let me acknowledge what you're feeling and validate and tell you it's okay to feel that way. And let's also look at, why do we feel that way? Because we were able to have such a good relationship with that person, or because we had so much love with that person in the first place. And that's something to be treasured and to be, you know, forever remembered and valued. It kind of goes back to what Jeff was saying a minute ago about what can we do versus what do we just not have control over. There's actually a whole field of therapy called ACT that kind of emphasizes there are certain things in life that are outside of our control. There are just circumstances we'll be in that we can't do anything about. But then there are little things that we can do to maybe help ourselves through.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I'm going to piggyback on Tammy's question, because there's also so many people around, and Tammy's listed, I mean, separate from COVID, life continues to happen, right? And those are heavy things. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is how can we, you know, we're not in that family, but we're sort of around them to support. And you know, providing meals and those sorts of things, you know, that, you know, common. But any advice for those of us who might be on the outside circle, who feel desperately like we want to do something, but don't know what to say, don't know what to do? How do we remain supportive? And one of the things I was taught a long time ago is that there's a spike in pain and grief right now, but that family's still hurting a month from now or 2 months from now, and the year anniversary, you know, and we've experienced that in my family, and it's very real. But any advice for those of us who want to help but aren't maybe right in the middle of it?
A lot of times my advice for if you want to help but just don't know how to help is to ask, to say, you know, I know you're going through a hard time. What can I do to help you out right now? How can I help make this better for you? Things that always make people feel good or help them out are those small random acts of kindness. Writing little thank you notes to people who you might not usually get the chance to talk to. So, you know, whether that's having just a pad of paper on hand, and when you think about something you're thankful for, just jot it down real quick and then give it to that person so that they've got that tangible indication that they're valued by somebody. And just that mindfulness to check in with them and see how they're doing and in what ways we can help them. But like small random acts of kindness, small ways to just say, thank you, I see you, you're doing a great job, especially with, you know, with strangers, why not? But with maybe people you don't often talk to.
Thank you. Yes.
So I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to ask, and this is what we do at the end of every guidance webinar. So everybody's got to speak, but so Jayme, Tammy, Jeff, any rapid fire questions or advice that you see that you may think is relevant, and then we'll close with any parting thoughts that Dr. Farrington may have after that. Jeff, as usual, you have to go first as a lower school.
Okay, now I just want everybody to know I did a much better job. I kind of kept my time down to a minimum. I did really well today. I'm just recognizing that for myself. But no, I don't know if I have any more questions, but I was thinking while Amber was talking about how to involve all the families, I was thinking, like, especially for my world, pre-K through 5th grade, like, and I know that the kids, they know the right thing. They know they're not going to visit, you know, grandparents or aunts because we want to protect them and keep them safe. But you know, something that I use probably on a daily basis here with our students is, like, you know, drawing a picture. This is what Amber, exactly what Dr. Farrington said, you know, of a great moment. Like, is there a great moment? But so just sitting down, spending a few minutes, maybe drawing a picture for the aunt or for the grandparent or whatever, and then that child having that moment to kind of, you know, experience that. That's just a quick suggestion that I had. And it kind of works. And kids, our students here just feel so, they feel so good when they do that, when they can do that in the class for their teacher or their classroom for their, you know, their parent. So it's just, they're kind of giving of themselves. So I hope that goes with what we're talking about, but I think that's something that they can, it's what they can do and not what they can't. And in making the video, I love that suggestion, making a video for a family member that you can't go see. I mean, is that not going to make that's going to make their life? I mean, because they've been at home, they've been missing them just as much as, you know, you have. So anyway, you sparked a lot of great ideas today.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it too. Already, you know, I think it's just about reframing, and I'm so grateful to have you, you know, suggest these things to us, because I'm already thinking, I've already written down some really fun things that I think we're going to just, you know, just put a positive spin on it. One thing that we're doing this year is we bought a used boat during quarantine. And so we just decided for our Thanksgiving this year, we're making turkey sandwiches, and we're going to make mason jars of pumpkin pie and go out there. And that's our Thanksgiving. And I think actually it will be one that they'll really remember because it'll stand out to them. So I really thought, how fun would it be to Zoom with the cousins, maybe do like a cake decorating competition and let them all show them, you know, on a Zoom call. So I thought, what a great idea, because my daughter was just telling me today, man, we're going to miss seeing all of our cousins. So what a fun way for them to kind of become creative, enjoy that, and then kind of enjoy looking at each other's cakes. I'm thinking that might be a good thing. And then also for Christmas, we typically light a candle for our grandparents that have passed. And so I was thinking we could even do that for our family that we're missing. Just pass a candle around and share a funny memory, share the funniest, you know, just those funny stories about your family that you have, or just the ones that really stand out to you. So just making that more of an effort. And I love the writing letters. We did that over quarantine as well. We wrote letters to our family members, and they told me they're keepsakes to them and something they put in their own memory boxes. And so I really like that idea too, just allowing the kids every day, they're off for 5 days, to write a letter to someone that they're missing and put that in the mail to them. So I think that you gave us some really cool, creative ways to really reframe. And like you said, make new traditions, and or maybe not a tradition, but make a new COVID tradition this year. And I think it could stick with them if we get creative about how we do that. So thank you. Really great ideas that I didn't take the time to sit and think about how to be more creative with these. So that's what I take away from it. And I hope our parents and family members and students take that away too, just thinking about how they could be more creative within their own family dynamics.
And what I took away, what I really is how, I mean, you said, ask people, ask them, what do you need? You know, I like, you know, being direct with it, because sometimes we feel like that's the last thing we need to do when somebody's dealing with grief or loss, you know, but honestly, yes, just to say, hey, I know you've lost this person, or I know you're not going to be able to spend time with your family, you know, what can I do to help you, or what can I do to be there for you? It kind of made me think that with our staff members that have lost loved ones this year, you know, is maybe we need to check back in with them in December and maybe do something as a staff again for those people. Because holidays are hard, you know, whether it's loss due to COVID and not being able to travel, or loss due to death, you know, or divorce, or whatever it may be. So that really stuck out to me. I also like the idea of that Jayme mentioned, the remembrance of those that have gone on. You know, for some, it may seem like that's too close and too personal, but like you said, it's important to acknowledge that grief, to acknowledge that loss, to acknowledge how you feel, and not act like it's not there. And I just think that's really important, a really important thing to hang on to. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Farrington, you get the last word. I'll add on to that. One of the things that I love the video idea. It is, I think, at least with my boys, they would enjoy trying to embarrass each other on video. Really, that would be a motivating factor for them. But one of the things, and this is something that as we continue with Zoom meetings, one of the things that I have to watch out on, especially because I do Zoom for business. So it's all about efficiency. How can I get through these things? But if we switch and think about Zoom for family and for connections, I really like the idea of the cake competition, right? Because like when we go home to my parents, we're not in active debate 24 hours a day. There's just time where you sit and you're just with people. So I think as you think about that strategy with Zoom and having competitions or things that just leave the line open for a long period of time so that it can become more natural. And it's not just, okay, we're going to call grandpa and we're going to talk for 5 minutes and then it's going to be over. It's not an efficiency game. It's trying to reproduce something new. So all of these are spectacular. I am, and I say this every time, I feel like a better person every time after sitting and talking with this group because I feel more prepared for what this next week has. But Dr. Farrington, any last thoughts or encouragement? And again, thank you for being with us.
Of course, it's been my pleasure to be here. You guys have such a strong, wonderful team that I always enjoy when I get to work with Maclay. I guess my takeaway from this is, I've been spending this holiday season thinking about how much can I, the more that I can involve my kids and can give them something to do or some way to, be a significant part of the family tradition for that holiday, the better that holiday will be for them. I know we have definitely been doing we've been doing the thankful tree. Mine are a little young, so we aren't able to necessarily write letters, but we've been drawing our pictures of what we're thankful for and putting them on leaves on the tree. The thank you video will be fun to send to grandma and grandpa. And I really, really, really wish they were old enough to do an iron chef with their cousins because I think they'd have so much fun with that. That's a fantastic idea, but maybe in a few years, we'll be doing iron chef contests. And hopefully in person.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, team, thank you again. Everyone who's tuning in or listening to this on either the webinar or podcast, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for caring enough to take the time to get better for our own children and for each other. Remember that as we take better care of ourselves, we're better equipped to take care of everyone around us and make an impact. So again, have a great holiday season. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Farrington.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.